The Seven Kingdoms, A Tale of True Love, and the Great War, by Shivalik Kalsotra, the ShivaSoule. Acknowledgement. This book is dedicated to my father Mr. Shivalik Kalsotra, who is my idol and hero. He is the most honest and hard-working person, who always supported me and encouraged me to follow my passion. He is not just my father but a great teacher, a friend, my mentor and my spiritual guide. He himself is a very prolific writer, thinker and philosopher, who has written many novels and books, but due to certain circumstances, didn't get the chance to publish them. During my childhood days he used to write for me and tell me very interesting stories, which not only created my interest and passion for writing, but also taught me great lessons for life. I owe my father and my mother every bit of my success. Preface. This book, The Seven Kingdoms, is the original work of the author Mr. Shivalik Kalsotra, also known by his pen name ShivaSoule, and is a continuous series, divided into 10 parts and 20 chapters. This book tells the tale of true love and sacrifice, the clash of warriors, their pain and horrors of the Great War, and finally the rise of those seven kingdoms. This story is full of love and sacrifice, great adventures, fantasy, action, drama, suspense, wisdom, philosophy and spirituality. Introduction. Everyone is chosen for certain purpose in their lives, which keeps them alive until it's fulfilled. Sometimes we find the places we are not supposed to and we witness certain events, which can change our lives forever. If I tell you that I was there, the whole time to witness the rise of the greatest and the strongest kingdom our world ever knew, you may or may not believe me. But you have to, because I still remember every incident, in the exact same manner, as it happened there. I witnessed the tale of true love and sacrifice, the clash of greatest warriors, their loss and pain, the bloody war, those endless tears of blood that turned the ocean red, and finally the rise of those great seven kingdoms. I was sent here only to tell you this tale, and that is the purpose of my life. The Seven Kingdoms, Part 1, The Beginning, Chapter 1. It was the dark gloomy day and the sky appeared, as it was about to cry. He was there stealing money from those people, as usual, in the crowded slave market. The market was filthy, filled with the smell of blood and rotten meat, located in the downtown of the city, in the middle of that deserted canyon, and was overcrowded. All kinds of people, the thugs, the pirates, the thieves, the wizards, the brothel owners, the slave resellers were there to buy the new slaves. The monster who was selling them, they call him the Reaper, was the king of that market and the main dealer, appointed by the brutal army general, Sir Crowbiller, who was the most feared one, and during his illegal raids on many villages and tribes, he captured them and then handed them over to him, the Reaper, for auction and to earn the profit. He, the Reaper, was a humongous creature, 8 feet tall, with muscular body covered in scars, with one cold, soulless eye and that black patch, covering the other one, blood-red complexion, bald head and ugly-looking face, wearing the skin of the tiger, with a whip in his hand. They call him the Reaper, because he was so strong that with just one hit of his whip he can rip off half the skin from slaves' back. He was standing on the stage where the slaves were auctioned, one by one. He was beating those slaves, to show the customers how strong they are. Most of them fell, due to extreme pain and injuries, some of them even died and thrown to dogs and wolves, but those who stood until the last, were the most valued ones and sold at highest price. After selling male slaves, they started selling female slaves. They were treated even more brutally. Their clothes were ripped off, and they were thrown naked on the stage, in front of the crowd for auction. Those of them who resist or fight were molested, beaten, humiliated and raped in front of the crowd. He was there watching all this very painful view silently, but he had stolen enough money from those culprit slave buyers today, and he was about to leave. Then suddenly the last female slave was brought for auction. He looked at her and his heartbeat just stopped for a moment, and his body froze. He looked at her dark blue eyes as deep as ocean, her beautiful lips like the rose petals, her silky golden brown hair, and her beautiful face and her body so perfect, like the goddess of beauty herself. She was resisting them, fighting them in that helpless situation till the end, and they were about to strip her in front of the crowd, who was cheering very loud, to see that beauty naked. She thought that it's the end for her and she just wanted to die, before facing all that humiliation. Then the Reaper, that dirty monster, moved forward to lick her face with his big filthy tongue, to taste her flesh, but she suddenly slapped the Reaper, who was now burning with anger and rage, and started hitting her with his famous whip. She was suffering intolerable pain and started looking towards that soulless crowd who instead of helping her were enjoying her pain. Then she suddenly noticed those frozen eyes filled with tears in the middle of the crowd, and looked straight into them. He felt like someone just looked right into his soul. A sudden current, the adrenaline rush, rushed through his veins, and he immediately rushed to the stage and offered the Reaper 5 times the highest price of a slave ever sold by him, for her. But the Reaper just whipped her one more time, before agreeing to 10 times the highest price of a slave ever sold by him, for her life. That was all the money he had gathered till now. But the Reaper was going to kill her, without any doubt, so he gave it all away for her without any second thought. Suddenly she just collapsed and the crowd noise was fading away. She saw a blurred face she was unable to recognize, smiling at her before it was total darkness, and she became unconscious. When she came back to her senses, she found herself in a wooden apartment. It was very beautiful and well decorated, like a royal house with furnished furniture. There were 5 rooms, 3 on the ground floor and 2 on the first floor, connected by beautiful stairs in the middle hall, all under one big roof, with an open kitchen in the hall. She looked outside the window, and there was a very beautiful scenery outside. It was situated in the middle of a lush green valley, surrounded by huge trees. There were mountains and peaks, covered with snow, that was glittering like a diamond, due to sunrise. It was a very enchanting view. She smelled a light sweet fragrance, from those beautiful and colorful flowers, blooming in the front porch of that apartment. There was no electricity invented then, as it was the era like our medieval age. So for light, they used mirrors and fire. The mirrors were so positioned, that only one fire burning in that big hall can be reflected by those mirrors in such a way, that it lights up the whole apartment. For a water supply, there was a beautiful waterfall nearby the apartment, from where they have created a bamboo structure, which connects the water supply, straight to that apartment in such a way, that water is always available to them, whenever required without any wastage. There were many other big and small, very creative structures, created by him, to solve day-to-day problems. While she looked, all puzzled and astonished, after watching all this, he was all lost, enthralled by her beauty and innocence. He still couldn't believe that it's a dream or reality, that she was standing right in front of him. She was sad and lost in her grief, as appeared to him, and reason for her sadness was yet unknown to him. He couldn't stop looking at her, but somehow, he was avoiding that unbroken stare, because he doesn't wanted to show her, that he fell in love with her just at the moment, when he saw her for the first time. Moreover, this was the first time he had ever bought any slave in his life, and that too, a woman with such a beauty and charm. He was very excited and completely melted from inside, but he doesn't want to look weak or desperate before her. He was her master and she was his slave for world's sake, but in reality his heart was enslaved by her, long before. When for the first time he saw her. According to the slave law there at that time, masters can make their slaves do anything, for their pleasure. The slaves were just tools, for them, and hence were very badly treated. She was scared, because of the stories she had heard, from other slaves during her captivity, that how their masters raped and tortured them. She was worried, what he is going to do with her. A moment of silence was there. He was just thinking that whether he should ask her to cook some food and clean the house, as he was living all alone there, and doing everything all by himself. For him she was never his slave. She was the free woman, the moment he had paid her price. He wanted to tell her that, very desperately, but there was no other bond holding them together, and he feared that if he tells her that, she might leave him, right away. So, he was just pretending to be her master, but how to do so, he had no experience at all. He didn't want it to look soft, so he toughened his voice and was just about to order her to cook a meal, clean the house, and after that give him a good massage. But when he looked at her beautiful, innocent and desperate face, his toughened voice choked, and he wasn't able to utter a single word. Instead he turned around silently, and he himself started cooking meal for her. They haven't spoken a single word yet and were silently eating their meal. Then for the first time, by gathering some courage, he spoke to her, "You can sleep in any of those 3 rooms. I will be upstairs on the first floor, the second one to the left is my room." He gave her the new dress, which he had purchased for her from the market while she was unconscious, as her clothes were dirty and almost torn. But she was all silent and didn't utter a word, so he left, and went to his room. He wanted to hear her voice, but he doesn't know why she was silent. He thought, maybe she don't trust him yet. After a few minutes, he thought to check her once, if she is doing fine. She was still in the hall, struggling to change her dress. Then he saw her back severely wounded by the whips of the reaper. She was in deep pain, but she was not expressing any of it. He wanted to take away all her pain, but he was also feeling helpless too. He, again pretending to be tough, came down, showing a little concern for her, drinking a glass of water and then slowly moving towards her. He dropped the ointment near her, like it was unintentional, and then went back to his room. She was silent but not a fool. She saw right through his act and picked that bottle. But she was unable to move her arms backwards, due to her injuries. So even she tried, she was unable to apply that ointment on her wounds. He was watching this silently from his room. He wanted to help her. He waited till she fell asleep. He came down and then applied that ointment on her wounds. He didn't want to show her yet that how much he loves her. But she wasn't able to sleep. The pain of her injuries kept her awake. She was just pretending to be in a very deep sleep. His warm touch was providing her relief. Neither he has expressed it in any words nor he was trying to show her, but still deep in her heart, she knows it, and can feel his unexpressed, mad love for her. She can feel his heart beating the every beat, just for her. But that was all wrong, she thought, and could be just her imagination. She was puzzled, that what just had happened and what he did. She was just a slave and he was her master. Maybe, he was just feeling pity for her. Also, she can't give her heart to anyone yet. Slowly she fell asleep. After a few days, her injuries got recovered, but she never spoke a single word to him. She just kept lying there all day and night, every day, like a lifeless bird in a cage with no emotions. Finally he decided to show her that he is the master and she just can't sit all day doing nothing, but deep down he was really worried about her. So he just acted tough and told her, ahem, clearing his throat, you know, I am your master and you are my slave. You are supposed to serve my every wish, and provide me comfort. I work all day and night, so hard to earn money and to provide you roof and food, but you just sit here all day, doing nothing. This is intolerable. She just looked at him, straight into his eyes, with those sad innocent blue eyes, and he was frozen again. He didn't know what to do or say next. But for the first time, he heard her melodious voice, I am sorry, master, you are very kind, just tell me what to do. He was going to say that's enough for me, you just sit and I will do all the work, but somehow he controlled his emotions and asked her to cook some food and clean the house. After a few days, a huge storm came. It was so strong that it uprooted huge trees like nothing. Due to that storm, some trees fell on their house and as a result, half of the house was broken. It was very cold winter season there at that time. His room was the only room left without any damage. As a guy who was crazy for her, it was his fantasy and innermost deepest desire to be close to her. This was their fate or his one-sided true love that was bringing them together. The wall of her room was also broken and freezing wind was blowing right through it. The temperature there was -5 degrees. It was impossible for anyone to stay in that room, but the condition of other 3 rooms was even worse. He asked her to sleep in his room with him until the house is repaired, but she didn't said a single word and instead, she chose to sleep in that broken room with freezing temperature, all alone. Now he was totally shocked and puzzled by her reaction. He was thinking, why she chose to sleep in that freezing room. She doesn't want to live anymore, or she is just angry with him, because he asked her to do the work. Whether she hates him that much, or she loves someone else. He was unable to solve this mystery, and this kept him awakened all night. He then heard a low voice of someone shivering. That voice was coming from her room. He rushed to her room and found her body, frozen and shivering, due to hypothermia. He didn't want her to die so easily. He immediately took her to his own room and wrapped her in warm tiger skin. He sat there for a few moments, rubbing her hands and feet, until her body temperature was back to normal. He couldn't burn the fire that night, because that wooden house was broken, and wind was blowing right through it, so there were chances that fire will spread, not only to their house, but also to the woods. He was still thinking about her earlier decision, and it seems pretty clear to him that she hates him, and didn't wanted him to be anywhere near her. So he left her in his room alone and he himself slept in that cold freezing room, with broken wall. It was very painful. His body was freezing but he was thinking, what made her choose such a pain over him? How much she hates him, and why? The temperature was further decreasing, and now that darkness started taking away the last light from him. All he could think at that moment was about her. He was happy that she will be free from tomorrow and can go wherever she wanted. Because when masters die, as per their law, the slaves are free if they have no one else in their family to own them. There was still a one regret left in his heart, that he was never able to tell her or show her how much he loves her. In the end, all he ever wanted was her happiness. Finally, that painful night was over. With the first ray of sun in the morning, she came back to her senses. When she found herself in his master's room, and he was not there, she immediately realized what had happened last night, that her master had sacrificed himself for her sake, and he spent the whole night in that cold room. Whether he is alive or not, she thought. With a scared look on her face, she rushed towards him, in tears, to find him. This was the first time she expressed such a deep emotions and concern for him. Her tears of regret and pain she was feeling for him won't stop rolling. When she entered that room, he was lying there, against the wall, like a lifeless body. She ran towards him, and holding his hands, with tears in her eyes, she said, "Please Master, wake up, don't die, it's all my fault. If I have listened to you last night, none of this would have happened. You suffered so much pain and suffering because of me." She was repeating all this, again and again, with never-ending tears. He was not dead yet. Deep down, he was listening to her voice, and he can feel her warm tears touching his cold body. He couldn't watch a single tear in her eye, and now they were flowing, like an endless river. He couldn't let that happen, so he came back to his senses and opened his eyes. Now one thing was clear to him, that she doesn't hate him. He smiled and replied, "It's all right, I am strong enough not to get affected and die in the hands of this tiny cold." He looked into her eyes, and wiped off her tears. Now life seems pretty normal, as she appeared out of her grief and much more involved with him. For the first time, he saw a smile on her face, the beauty of which can't be described in words. He thought life is back on track, and everything appeared normal. One evening, he was chopping wood outside near the jungle, to repair the house. Suddenly, a wild brown bear attacked him, from the behind. He neutralized him, somehow, with his axe and forced him to run back to jungle. He respected Mother Nature and animals, so he generally didn't hurt them, or kill them. But due to this encounter his back and shoulder were severely injured. Still somehow, he managed to reach back to his house. He knocked at the front door, and suddenly fell down unconscious, for a moment, due to huge blood loss. She opened the door and was shocked to see him in such a state. She was asking him how this happened, but he wasn't in the condition to reply her. He knew that she won't be able to pull him inside, all by herself, so he regained enough consciousness to just walk inside all by himself and then again fell unconscious. She immediately started cleaning his wounds, and then she saw something on his back. She for the first time was frozen, for a moment. She couldn't control her emotions. She just started crying, and endless tears started rolling down her cheeks. Then the next day when he woke up, she was so excited and just rushed towards him, with tears of joy and smile. She hugged him so tight, like they are seeing each other for the last time, and after that, there is going to be endless separation. He wasn't able to understand the situation as what's going on just now, and believe me, he didn't even wanted to. All he ever wanted was to be lost in that moment forever. After a few moments he smiled and said, "I am not going to die so easily. Just calm down, I am not leaving you alone, ever." She smiled and replied, "You are the Rudrajaya, the undefeatable warrior, the son of our chief, the heir to our throne, our last hope, my love, and my soul." He suddenly felt the pain in his head. This name. How do you know this name? I have been hearing this name in my dreams, since my childhood. I thought, it's just a dream. She replied, "You really don't remember anything. I am your love, Nilanjana. Last night, when I was treating your wounds, I saw that half-crimson moon, your ancestral birthmark, on your back, and your eyes still the same, bright and sharp, golden brown, and I can feel your love from the first day we met, your heart, that still beats only for me. That burn mark on your shoulder, you don't remember, you got that, while protecting me from that fire. They all told me to believe that you are dead, and marry someone else, but I always knew that you are alive. As long as I am breathing, and as long as my heart is beating, you have to be alive, and today finally, I found you. All my prayers have been answered today. Your father, your sister, all are still alive." He was shocked, and a current of joy ran through his body. "I have a family, my home, my people. Where are they? Please tell me everything." She replied, with tears in her eyes, "Your family, my family, our people, they all are slaves." He asked, with a mournful look and very tense voice, "All of them, slaves, how? How that happened?" To be continued in the Seven Kingdoms. The Beginning, Chapter 2. This is the original work by author Shivalik Kalsotra, the ShivaSoule. If you enjoyed this book, support the author for more interesting stories and books. Also follow ShivaSoule on Facebook, Twitter and Instagram, links given in description. Subscribe to our channel, Inspiring Soul. Thanks for your love and support.